Tonight, for the first time in more than 120 years, the Flatiron Building is glowing. A brand new LED system, the first permanent lighting in its history, traces its famous triangular silhouette against the Manhattan skyline. Inside, apartments are selling for as much as $50 million. Some of them snapped up before they were ever publicly listed. But rewind just a few years, and this exact same building, one of the most photographed structures on Earth, was a ghost. No tenants, no lights, just scaffolding, netting, and 22 floors of silence in the middle of Fifth Avenue. So how does a building go from completely abandoned to one of the most sought-after addresses in New York? The answer runs through a bitter ownership war, a courthouse steps auction, and a total stranger who bought the building for $190 million, with money that never actually existed. This is the story of how New York almost lost the Flatiron, and how it came back as a legend. This is the Flatiron Building, 175 Fifth Avenue, at the corner where Broadway slices across the grid. Designed by Daniel Burnham and completed in 1902, it rises 22 stories and 307 feet on a triangular sliver of land so narrow that people once bet it would collapse in the wind. Inside, its wedge-shaped floors created some of the strangest office layouts in the city, rooms that narrowed to almost nothing at the building's famous point. For over a century, it was one of Manhattan's most recognizable business addresses. Then, it became something stranger, a landmark that sat behind scaffolding, without a single tenant inside. The story starts with a departure. In 2019, publishing house Macmillan, the building's sole occupant for decades, moved out. For the first time in more than a century, the Flatiron Building sat vacant. And that vacancy is what set everything else in motion. For most of its history, the Flatiron thrived on its own strangeness. Those tiny, awkward offices near the building's point, with views straight down both Fifth Avenue and Broadway, became some of the most desirable space in the building rather than the least. Publishing houses, ad agencies, and creative firms filled it for generations, drawn to a character no glass tower could copy. By 2019, ownership sat with a five-way partnership: GFP Real Estate, Newmark, the Sorgente Group, ABS Partners, and investor Nathan Silverstein, who held a 25% stake. With Macmillan gone, everyone agreed the building needed serious work: new systems, a restored facade, a plan for what came next. The partners disagreed over the plan. Four wanted major renovation. Silverstein proposed splitting the building into 5 properties, called unworkable, since landmark rules forbid such division. Nobody expected this renovation dispute to decide the building's fate. It seemed like one dissenting vote among longtime partners. That assumption didn't survive the years that followed. By 2021, the other 4 owners had run out of patience. They sued Silverstein, and in 2022, a New York judge ruled in their favor, but not in the way anyone expected. Instead of forcing a quiet buyout, the court ordered something far more dramatic: a partition auction, held live and in public, on the steps of the New York County Courthouse. On March 22, 2023, the auction began. The building's own owners showed up expecting to win it back themselves. Instead, a 31-year-old outsider named Jacob Garlick, managing partner of a little-known Virginia investment firm called Abraham Trust, kept raising his paddle until the price hit $190 million, beating the ownership group's bid of $189.5 million by $500,000. For 2 days, Garlick was a New York celebrity. He told reporters that owning the Flatiron had been his dream since he was 14 years old. Then came the deadline. Under the auction's terms, Garlick owed a 10% deposit, $19 million, within days. It never arrived. His lawyers blamed delays with 2 different banks and submitted redacted financial records that no one could independently verify. On paper, $19 million is a rounding error in New York real estate. For a landmark that had just been sold live on the courthouse steps, it was enough to blow the entire deal apart. So what happens to one of the most famous buildings in America when its own sale turns out to be worthless? The answer started with a second auction, and a very different set of rules. This time, bidders needed a certified $100,000 check to participate, plus proof of deposit funds. Garlic, having defaulted previously, was barred from bidding again. On May 23, 2023, Jeffrey Gurrell's Group, GFP Real Estate, Newmark, Sorgente Group, and ABS Partners won with a $161 million bid, buying out Silverstein and gaining full control after decades of shared ownership. However, after Garlic failed to pay his $19 million deposit, owners sued him and Abraham Trust, alleging his $190 million bid lacked real funding. Owning the Flatiron again was only the start. Turning a landmark more than 120 years old into homes meant satisfying the city's Landmarks Preservation Commission at nearly every step. And the zoning code presented its own obstacle. Existing rules capped residential use at half the building, so the new owners had to apply for a variance just to convert it fully. In October 2023, the Brodsky organization joined GFP and the Sorgente Group as the lead development partner on the Flatiron's residential conversion. In October 2024, the partnership secured a $357 million construction loan from Tico Capital to finance the project. More than 1,000 windows were individually replaced. Thousands of terracotta ornaments, hand-replicated by a specialty manufacturer using techniques barely changed from the building's original construction, were reinstalled piece by piece alongside a full repair of the building's 6-foot cornice. Workers hand-restored the building's oldest craftsmanship using century-old methods, while engineers installed the Flatiron's first-ever permanent LED lighting system, preservationist approved, making it glow after dark for the first time. Interior designer William Sofield shaped the 38 new residences using materials uncovered during construction. Original ironwork, railings, marble mosaics blended into modern layouts fitting the tower's tapering shape. The once feared steel frame was left exposed as a design feature. But turning a landmark this old into modern homes was never just a construction problem. It was a bet that after everything the building had survived, people would actually want to live inside a triangle. The early response suggests the new chapter is already taking shape. 3-bedroom units start around $11 million. A 5-bedroom residence on the 21st floor has listed for $50 million. Multiple apartments have gone into contract off-market before ever being publicly advertised. At street level, chefs Rita Sodi and Jody Williams, the team behind Via Carota, are opening a location of their Cafe Bar Pisolino at the building's base, bringing foot traffic back to a corner that sat behind netting for years. But the Flatiron's real significance lies beyond price tags. It symbolizes solving a national problem: empty offices amid housing shortages. Converting existing structures avoids the carbon cost of demolition and new construction. The building exemplifies a growing nationwide trend: aging commercial buildings transformed into homes rather than left vacant or torn down. It also carries a real cost. Adaptive reuse on this scale isn't cheap or fast. One 22-story building took years of litigation, a $357 million loan, and a full replacement of its windows and ornamentation just to become livable again. A stranger's unpaid $19 million deposit is the reason New York almost lost track of one of its own landmarks, and the reason it eventually got some of the most talked about apartments in the city. No demolition, no glass tower in its place. Just a building more than 120 years old, stripped down to its steel frame and rebuilt from the inside out. Somewhere on 5th Avenue right now, lights are on inside the Flatiron Building for the first time in its history. If a building this odd, this fought over, and this narrow can find a second life, what does that say about the empty office tower sitting a few blocks from you?